in it all this season. Plus, what is going on in New Orleans? CJ McCollum on the Zion Williamson situation that everyone is talking about. Also, half man, half amazing himself, Vince Carter, on another edition of the Upper Room. NBA Today starts right now. Welcome to NBA Today. I'm Malika Andrews, and the NBA is back tonight. But before we look forward to the second half of the season, we have to follow up on one of the biggest storylines through the All-Star break, the future of Zion Williamson in New Orleans. So CJ McCollum said that he didn't immediately hear from the young superstar after he was traded from the Blazers, although he did tell me that eventually he did hear from Zion. But Coach Willie Green, he just spoke on the situation at Pelicans practice. Take a listen.
You know, some things need to stay private, but I will say this. What Z is going through is extremely difficult. As a player, as a person, I've went through injuries. No excuses made on my part, but it's difficult. And you're weighing a lot at those moments. You're weighing, are you going to continue to play? You weighing, like, a lot goes through your head. And so for us here, for me, it's having compassion and having an understanding of what he has to go through to get healthy.
All right, so that was today at practice. We welcome in Kendrick Perkins, Chiney Ogwumike, and Brian Windhorst. So, Chiney, I want to start with you here. What do you make of the situation out in New Orleans right now?
I agree. I think it starts with compassion, understanding that Zion Williamson came into the league at the age of 17, 18, 19, where we all sort of fell in love with his game and what his potential could be. And it takes a while for you to find yourself, and it's even harder when you have injuries at an early stage of your career and have to figure out what to do to maintain yourself. So when Zion exited or removed himself from the situation, I was like, this is probably necessary. Ever since he was 14, 15, he's had cameras all up on him, and now he needs to be able to take some time for himself. And when I heard the conversation with CJ McCollum, I didn't get like red flags or alarms. I just know Zion is trying to do what is best for him in this situation. And CJ obviously is going to do what's best for him too. Meaning, all right, I want to have communication with the star player of the franchise. I didn't think that this was, something outlandish. I'm just glad that Zion has reached out at this point, that they understand that compassion is going to take some time to get back to Zion, in New Orleans, and that CJ has touched base. So to me, all of this, I can understand the challenges that Zion has had, but I'm glad that communication has been met at this point.
Yeah, checking in with CJ McCollum earlier this week, it certainly was clear to me that he didn't see any ill intent on the side of Zion Williamson in not reaching out. It's just something that maybe he didn't think of or have to quite, it just didn't come to front of mind, Perk.
Yeah, but here's the question that we need to ask ourselves. Why is Zion disconnected from the team anyway? Like, you're hurt. Why you're not in New Orleans where you have the professional staff for us, the medical staff, the training staff, all the above to get everything you need right there in the organization. And here's the problem that I have is that nothing that Willie Green said was wrong. He said everything was right. Like, Zion had the most pressure on him since LeBron James for us coming out of high school, college, or whatever the case may be. But y'all want to know the real? The real is that I think it's time for the Pelicans to relocate. I think a city like Seattle, a city like Las Vegas is more deserving of a team, of a basketball team, because I played in New Orleans, and they always are going to come second to the New Orleans Saints. I've been there. They always are going to be the little brother to the New Orleans Saints. Just think about it. Zion is a box office type guy. The Pelicans are still trying to give tickets away. Like, we watching, even when he's playing, we're watching the game and it's empty seats. Like, it would never be a basketball city, and that's okay. But I think if the NBA want to move in the right direction, they really have to consider moving this team and this organization in order for them to even keep superstars and make this franchise relevant.
I will say, Big Perk, from my understanding, it was partly the team as well as Zion Williamson that came together and decided, okay, this is where he should be. He should be in Oregon. Brian Windhorst, I know that you're all over this situation down in New Orleans. What are you hearing kind of coming out of the team?
Yeah, just to speak to what Perk said real quick, Gail Benson, the owner of the Saints and Pelicans, announced earlier this season she was going to donate the teams to the city of New Orleans for them to essentially sell a $5 to $6 to $7 billion gift when she passes away. So I don't think they're going anywhere. I think it's more likely they're getting a new arena in the next 5 to 10 years. But as far as Zion goes, his family is he and his family are obviously grappling with a choice on how to deal with his foot injury. We don't know what that choice is because the team and Zion have kept the information very tight. They're certainly entitled to doing that. But if listening to what CJ said, listening to what JJ Redick said, I think it's clear that there are connections that are frayed or broken here than what we normally see between star players and their team and star players and their training staff. And that's what I think is worrisome. But I also point out, Joel Embiid played 31 games his first 3 years in the NBA because of a series of injuries. The 76ers stuck with him, signed him to a big contract that protected both sides, and I think it worked out great for him. And I still think Zion has great potential and can get back and make all of this right.
And I agree. And Perk, when you mention, we got to keep it real, well, we all know, when you enter the professional ranks, for me, the WNBA, for you, the NBA, it took us maybe 5 or so years to make those decisions. All right, I need a nutritionist. I need to have my own massage therapist. I might need my own osteopath or, physical therapist. We made those decisions a couple years into our careers. Zion was faced on the reality early on, and that's why this shift of him removing himself, I'm not surprised because it's probably the best thing for him. It's no knock on any team's training staff, but sometimes having your own team and also your own time to make these decisions to get you back on track is the best case scenario as a professional.
Well, CJ McCollum is speaking to reporters in New Orleans as we speak, and he just told those reporters, leave the young fella alone. That echoes sort of what CJ McCollum had told me earlier. This is the first time that we are hearing from CJ McCollum, and you can see there, Zion Williamson on his Instagram story, he posted earlier, this is him and his teammates saying, my dogs for life, 100. So take that for what you will, but CJ's turned the page here. He's not taking it as any ill will or ill intent. I do want to turn the page here from New Orleans, where there are still tons of questions being asked, to Brooklyn, where there's starting to be some answers maybe. So Goran Dragic, remember, he was signed to help bolster the Nets' backcourt depth. So take a listen to what he had to say about picking his new team.
I choose Brooklyn because I think that they have a really good chance to win a championship, especially to play alongside Kyrie, KD, Ben Simmons, Aldridge. Those are the guys who are already playing big games, and because of Steve, of course. Steve was my mentor. It's only fitting that when I came to the league, I play with him, and now you never know. To finish my career with him would be awesome.
All right, so now bringing in our Nets reporter, Nick Friedel. Nick, there's lots of positivity there from Dragic on his new team, but what is the mindset for the Nets as they prepare to play their first game in the second half of the season tonight against the Celtics?
Malika, they absolutely believe they can still win a title. And that's the difference. You look at a team usually with this kind of record, who's had this kind of injury problems. They just traded Harden. There are distractions all over the place. But I was in that practice facility the last couple of days, and the optimism is everywhere because they feel like KD's coming back in a couple days. They know that Kyrie, the vaccination mandate, the hope is that it gets rolled back here in the next few weeks, and then Ben Simmons at some point in the next couple weeks is going to come back, and they believe he's going to come back and play at a high level. I just talked to Seth Curry and Patty Mills, Malika, and they both told me the same thing. Simmons is in a much better place mentally than he's been in a long time. And the Nets are going out of their way, led by Mills, to make sure that he is in a good landing space inside that locker room. Seth Curry said, I don't care what happened in Philly. He doesn't owe anybody an apology. He's here to play. And even in the worst of times with Embiid last season, when he was on the floor, those two still had a solid chemistry. So all the stuff that's going on off the floor and behind the scenes, the Nets aren't worried about it. They believe that Simmons is going to come back very strong, and they know that when they're healthy, and then you add Dragic, this is a team that has a roster that looks like it can contend and get out of the East.
Absolutely. Certainly, if and when they get healthy, this is a team that I don't know that I would want to see. Booker is going to have to carry a lot of the ball handling duties with CP out for the foreseeable future. And this season, Booker averages 1.5 more assists per 36 minutes when Chris Paul is not on the court. But Book has done this before in seasons prior to Paul's arrival in Phoenix. Remember, he averaged nearly 7 assists per game in 2019 and 2020, and those numbers, yeah, they've gone down to 4.5 since he got the point guard on his team. But the toughest part will be getting his shot off with defenses being able to lock in on Booker. In fact, 97% of his shots with Chris Paul not on the court this season, they've been contested, which would be the highest mark in the league among players with 100 attempts. So my question for you, Chiney, is are the Suns still the favorites in your mind to win the West if Chris Paul is less than 100%?
Girl, you just did your thing. I love numbers, and those are a lot of great numbers. And yes, to answer your question, the Suns are my favorite still without Chris Paul, largely because this is a team that knows how to play on both ends of the floor. They're top 3 in offensive and defensive rating. And if we're talking about Devin Booker, he's averaging 25.5 points per game this season. You can imagine that he's going to shoot the ball more with Chris Paul out just because he knows he's the one that they're going to have to look to. Listen to this. You gave us a lot of good numbers. Only LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Devin Booker have averaged 25 points per game over the last 4 seasons.
Yes, ma'am.
That's impressive. A lot of people have slept on this team. They've slept on his play. Well, that's not the case anymore. I think, honestly, Devin Booker has an opportunity to really insert himself into the MVP conversation.
Ooh.
Because if he's able to help keep them afloat, they have the league's best record. And then on top of that, he's playing great basketball, hopefully first-team All-NBA. You can see a scenario where he's in the I'm still with Embiid, but he can get himself, just like DeMar DeRozan got himself into the conversation.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan absolutely in that conversation. And Devin Booker, I asked him, that was the first thing I said, is 25 points per game or more over the last 4 seasons. But the difference now is that you're winning. And that really is where he's seeing his game go to the next level. What do you think about where the Suns are going to shake out, Big Perk, as we also welcome in Vince Carter, without Chris Paul, even for some period of time?
You know what? I think they're going to be okay. I think they're still going to have that number 1 seed. The great thing about the Phoenix Suns is that they gave themselves so much of a gap as, being ahead of Golden State and Memphis that at the end of the day, they got room for error. But I don't think this team is going to let up. I'm ready to see Devin Booker take take a level up for us making others around him better and still getting his 25 a night. But when you talk about missing Chris Paul, yes, you can't replace his leadership, but they still have some veteran leaders over there. Jay Crowder, JaVale McGee, like those guys could keep the locker room in check and keep everybody in order and make sure everybody be stars in their role. So I still see them being the number 1 seed in the West, and I still give them a slight edge of being the favorite of winning it all, not just winning the Western Conference, but winning it all.
What do you think, VC?
Right now, currently, I think that they're the best in the West, and they're still the favorite until we see what the Golden State Warriors are going to do and once they get themselves back in gear. But to me, my question is the others, Campaign, Peyton, point guards like that, can they just be solid? Be solid, because right now, Devin Booker, you're asking a lot for him to score. Yes, Perk, I agree with you. The next step for Booker now is, can he be the facilitator and get guys going as well as still get his scoring? Can he, defensively take the load, be the leader, be the vocal leader? There's a lot that comes into being that leader and stepping in for someone like Chris Paul. So I say look out for them, but you still got to look out for those Golden State Warriors, who are 6.5 games back, and also the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm surprised, Perk, you haven't mentioned your Grizzlies.
Oh, don't worry. We're going to give Perk plenty of time.
I wanted to go a whole month. I wanted to go a whole month without saying something about the dark side, okay?
A whole month?
I'm not saying nothing about the dark side.
I'm telling you right now, that's not going to happen. I do have to say,
not going to happen.
It's not. As an aside, our friend JJ Redick, he had Chris Paul on his podcast recently, and one of my favorite and most interesting anecdotes from that podcast is when Chris Paul hurt himself in the playoffs last year, he needed to get an MRI. And Chris Paul is so claustrophobic, he said he needed to get put under anesthesia to take the MRI. So if you all haven't listened to that podcast, I highly suggest it, Suns fans. But Perk, if the Suns are able to secure the league's best record, is Monty Williams your Coach of the Year favorite?
It's hard, but I still got to roll with. I gotta roll with JB Bickerstaff. You know why? And it's no knock on Monty Williams, but no one in the world thought that Cleveland will be where they at right now, including myself.
Preach.
And when I look at their identity and I look at what they do on the defensive side of things, their commitment of playing agenda-free basketball, that's a reflection of the coach. And here it is. He got Kevin Love, a veteran, to buy into his role, come in off the bench, don't complain, backing up Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And now you have Darius Garland doing his thing. I got to roll with JB Bickerstaff. Nobody on this panel thought that Cleveland would be at the top of the East. Nobody thought that preseason.
Janae is champing at the bit over here.
But Perk, I feel like this is very similar where you have LeBron James not winning MVP for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and it's going to other qualified guys where you can have the guy that's literally been the most dominant the last 2 years as a coach with putting his team in a great position to succeed, and Monty Williams getting snubbed. I am here for the Thibodeau and New York Knicks type of, unexpected to expected, what we're seeing, with Cleveland. It just hurts me because it's like, he deserves it, though. Their team is number 1 overall in the league. To me, they're playing a great brand of basketball. There have been periods, Chris Paul has been, there. Devin Booker has been there. But like you said, Vince, the others have stepped up and not only committed themselves offensively to getting better, but defensively to holding it down. So as much as I'm happy for Coach JB, this also hurts me because I feel the same way that I felt when LeBron James sometimes gets snubbed from MVP. We're like, can we do 2 awards? Can it be called?
That's not
but you know what I'm saying.
Who you got?
I have JB Bickerstaff as well.
Oh, okay.
Because I said, like Perk said, there's no. You just look at Cleveland like, all right, young talent has potential. I know JB. JB was assistant coach with me in Memphis. I know how he is and how he thinks. They were 22-50 last year. 22-50. Now they're 35-23. 35-23. 2.5 games out of first place. That's incredible. So what he's doing, they lost Sexton. They lost Ricky Rubio. So now you thought, they're dead in the water. Well, guess what? Guess what comes out of that? 2 All-Stars. 2 All-Stars and Evan Mobley balling.
Yeah, I do not disagree with that. JB certainly has a case. Monty, I kind of am on the side of Chiney here. You could look at Billy Donovan in Chicago. There's some interesting cases to be made. I do want to say, though, gentlemen, and Chiney Agumake, tomorrow, again by Brian Windhorst. And Brian, the Bulls, they have been one of the best stories in the NBA this season. They've just been so fun to watch already with their highest win total since 2016-17 season. But All-Star guard Zach LaVine, he missed 10 of the last 19 games that they played with a knee injury. So what updates do you have from Chicago?
Yeah, a week before All-Star, he was out in Los Angeles for a cocktail, Malika, and it was not the kind of cocktail that you want. He had platelet-rich plasma therapy. He had a cortisone shot in that left knee, and he had the knee drained. Ooh. Now, the idea here is that this will get him to the end of the season, although he hinted in discussing this with me at All-Star weekend that he might need to have more treatment in the offseason. And he was cleared to play in that All-Star game, like I said, and that he's feeling better and it will get him through the end of the season. But it's obviously very worrisome for a guy who is very important to the Bulls. And this is the same knee that he tore the ACL in back in 2017. Now, I asked him, how do you balance playing for this championship run that they hope that they're about to be on and weighing his free agency? Obviously, that knee is going to be very important as he becomes a free agent. And he told me, I just want to win. So obviously it's going to be something that he hopes is going to be okay, but we should all keep an eye on it going forward. Absolutely, especially considering, as you mentioned, the deep run that they want to make. With the Bulls, they come out of the All-Star break tied for first in the East with the Heat, but they have a rough schedule ahead. Brian, thank you so much. According to ESPN's BPI, Chicago has the toughest remaining schedule in the NBA. You can take a look. The Lakers have number 2, the Warriors number 3. So, Chiney and Perk, I want to loop you two back into this conversation as well. With so many questions surrounding the injuries of the Bulls roster. I'm talking about Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams. How deep of a run, Big Perk, can this Bulls team make in these playoffs?
healthy, I mean, it's no ceiling. And the East is so wide open that we just don't know. That's how good the Eastern Conference is. But when you look at the Chicago Bulls, they check all the boxes. They have centers. They have guards. They have wings, athletic wings at that. They have everything that you want, and they have the scoring power. Here's the thing. They have to get Caruso and Lonzo Ball back. When you look at their defensive rating, yes, it has dropped. You know why? Because those two guys are two of the elite, most elite defenders at the wing and guard position in the NBA. But look, Ayo is starting to get better. He's going to help them throughout the playoffs. We've been sleeping on Kobe White for his most improved. Every time I look up, the man got a 20 to 25 piece wing dinner. So yes, the Chicago Bulls can make a run. We could just keep arguing and debating about different teams in the Eastern Conference because the East is that damn good.
Yeah.
Is it lemon pepper or Cajun rug? Which one? Lemon pepper, Cajun rub?
Cajun rub was last week. Yeah, we're going lemon pepper.
Okay, we're going lemon pepper.
Look, I definitely think the Chicago Bulls can make a run, and I know you mentioned the defensive issues that they've had, with Caruso and then also Lonzo hopefully coming back. That will fix some of that because we all know the realities. DeMar is focused on his offense and, holding that side of the, game afloat. Vucevic is maybe not, that's not necessarily his bread and butter defensively, but those are areas that they can improve, and then you add those two back, it's going to look good. That number was 9th in defensive rating and efficiency since, that was before Lonzo. After, they've been 24th. So they've really been struggling on that side of the ball. But, Wendy brought up the cocktail that is scary. Well, I'm here to say I've had that cocktail, and that cocktail has helped me get back on the court, especially this offseason. The difference between myself and Zach LaVine, is the fact that he's in season and I'm out of season, right? So I felt the benefits. You just have to sort of manage his games and his time and make sure that he gets the adequate amount of rest. Sometimes that means pulling back from practice. Sometimes that means maybe sitting out of a game or two here or there, as long as you keep that swelling down. So your girl knows, I'm sure Big Perk probably knows too, what that's like. It's more normal to get those types of things than it is not normal. It sounds intimidating by the words of PRP and cortisone.
Cocktail sounds much better.
Yeah, it sounds, exactly.
Yeah, cocktail sounds much better, but I prefer a martini.
I'm drinking Cokes, though.
We know, 5 when you're on a plane before you take off. All right, call me Gordon Ramsay because it is time to chop it or drop it. Are you guys ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, this just in, Isaiah Thomas can score. Did you know that? Yesterday, IT dropped 45 points and tied the G League scoring record for this season. He's averaging 43.5 points per game in his first 2 games with the Grand Rapids Gold. So, Perk, chop it or drop it?
We got to chop it. You know what? I can't understand for the life of me why is this guy can't stay on the NBA roster.
Well, there you go. All right. Ben Simmons, who has made a total of 5 3-pointers in his entire career, was seen at practice on Wednesday working on his form with assistant coach and former NBA sharpshooter Kyle Korver. Chanae, chop it or drop it?
Let's chop it just for a second because in Kyle Korver's shooting, we trust, okay?
Oh, there you go. All right, well, speaking of shooters, next up,
leave me alone,
Danny Green. He had some very interesting things to say about Ben Simmons and if he expects him to play when the Nets take on the Sixers in Philly on March 10th. Take a listen.
Interesting dynamic of who went with him. I don't know. I haven't got a chance to talk to those guys yet, but I know they weren't on the most of cordial terms when he was in Philly with Drum and Seth. Now, will we shake hands to start? Probably not. First, I'd be highly surprised if he even plays in that game. I don't know where his health is mentally, physically. We all know that he does not like to play in Philly. So if he does play in that game, I'd be highly surprised. But say that does happen, I see it as being a very hectic, playoff-like atmosphere environment to where it may be very rough for him.
Okay, a little spicy there. Brian, chop it or drop it?
How could you not chop that? Because that's some of the highest level trash talk you're ever going to hear from Danny Green. He is daring Ben Simmons to play in that game. I dare you to come back into Philly. He didn't say it like that, but that's what he was meaning.
What did you make of that, Big Perk?
I love it. I love it. And I think Ben should embrace it. I think he needs to go and play in that game and just get it past him. But I love, I'm always down for the trash talking, especially when it comes from a guy like Danny Green who don't say a word. The ultimate professional, great guy. But when he gets to bumping his gums, I love it. Hey, look, they got beef. Y'all know what I'm about to say. Let's make some hamburgers.
Look, that wasn't just hot. Oh, hamburgers. I love that. Hamburger helper. That wasn't just hot. That was like African red pepper hot. Okay? Yeah, because we all know Danny, and Danny doesn't really speak like that on other players unless he feels about it personally. So I would just say this, you know, we all know the narrative leaving Philly for Ben Simmons has largely been mental health. That environment, he just doesn't feel comfortable playing basketball there. Brooklyn is better. So I would not be surprised if he sits out, but my goodness.
Headline Kemba Walker for the rest of the season, Woj.
Malika, ultimately the Knicks, I think, honoring the stature of Kemba Walker, who he is, a four-time All-Star, really one of the real high character players who's been in this league in the last decade, honoring his wishes that this season was over for him in New York. The final 23 regular season games, he'll sit out. He can certainly start, to physically prepare his body for the offseason for next season. There are a number of teams who would love to have Kemba Walker in a buyout. That's not going to happen. He's not interested in that with New York. Remember, he negotiated a buyout with Oklahoma City, signed the 2-year, $18 million deal with the Knicks. And listen, it hasn't worked out. This experiment with Tom Thibodeau, he was benched shortly before Thanksgiving, set out a number of games and, was brought back into the lineup when they had to have him back when they were down numbers. But there's a very good chance he's played his final game for the Knicks. They'll get to the offseason, and with a year left on his deal, see if there's a trade scenario that might work for the Knicks and Kemba Walker.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a trade scenario. Let's spin this forward. Walker will be on an expiring contract this summer, and I think it's fair to say that the Knicks haven't lived up maybe to expectations so far this season. What strategies are being weighed in the Knicks front office in light of New York's lackluster performance this past year?
Well, Malika, the goal has been, since Leon Rose was hired as president and William Wesley was brought into the front office, that they would be in the market for franchise-type players who became available in trades. This isn't a team that has cap space this summer, but they do have assets. They have draft assets. They have all their own picks. They still have Dallas's 2023 first-round pick, which is protected. That certainly would have value. So is there a big player who can become available in trade talks? Is it a player who asks out of another situation or someone who perhaps there are previous relationships with the Knicks front office that they can get to in trade talks? And I think that's been the goal. But again, no cap space this summer. And the Knicks really have to take inventory on how much are their assets, their young players, what are they worth in the marketplace? But the goal here was not to kind of be a middling team to be fighting for a play-in. It was to go get high-level players. That will be the objective this offseason. It's another thing to be able to
dunk contest highlights. But did you happen to catch the dunk contest last weekend in Cleveland? What did you think?
I did not happen to catch it, but I think a solution for this, let's put some more money on the line.
Oh.
Let's put a little more. 25,000 is not enough. Let's up it to like 500,000 to $1 million and see if we get the attention. You see how that perked your ears up? You see what that did to you?
Is that coming out of your pocket, Vince? Because it sure ain't coming out of mine.
The NBA can afford it. You see how many people in those stands right there? They'll be okay.
All right.
But I guarantee you put $1 million up, you get the best players, and it'll be must-see TV at that point.
All right. Well,
instead of that Shaq face.
I'm sure the NBA heard you, and they're out there like, how much? All right, let's go from the bad dunks to some good dunks. So it's time to pay a visit to, where are we going, Vince?
The upper room.
There you go.
Let's do it.
All right, you were last on the show January 27th. That was my birthday. So these are the best dunks since that time. Are you ready?
Absolutely. And let Perk know bottle service is on the way for that Coke he has.
Boom. Bottle service for Big Perk. First up, Joel Embiid on Jarrett Allen.
I mean, it's simple as this. Joel Embiid is playing at an MVP level, and right now at a shot blocker, that's called may he rest in peace. That's a body bag. I mean, you just see he just goes through them, gets up. Normally Joel Embiid is like hyping the crowd up. That was all business for a reason right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, next, Naz Reid on Alex Len.
Mr. Naz Reid on my former teammate Alex Len. You know it's trouble for a player when he gets to the free throw line, he's starting to cup the ball like Dr. J. Right here, he's cupping like, and then that means business. And
Woo!
There's nothing you can do after that.
No.
You got to take that.
Absolutely not. All right, next, Big Perk, are you listening? Ja's windmill alley-oop against the Wizards.
I tell you what, here, I mean, there's a select few guys that can do this dunk, and he does that with ease. He makes it look so easy where you could go home on a basketball hoop and try it and possibly pull it off, but you can't. You know what? I've seen that dunk before. Something like that. Interesting.
Oh, hey, you mean this dunk?
It looked a little something like this. Yeah.
Show them how it's done, Vince.
That's how, and Ja made it look easier than that.
All right, let's go to last but certainly not least, Diallo, the steal, the windmill.
Man, let me tell you something. It's one dribble step, and what impressed me more than that is on the steal, he takes one dribble, one step, full extension, and throws it down with power. Like there again, there's only a select few guys that can complete a full windmill. A little something like that right there.
How many highlights are we going to see? Are you going to let yourself in? Are you letting yourself into the upper room?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
So then who are we lifting those precious velvet ropes for this week's, today's upper room?
Well, we have bottle service for Perk, so he's happy. I say open the gates because Mr. Ja Morant, welcome back to the upper room. He had to go away. He told me he had to step out for a second, and we got to let our VIPs back in the building.
My goodness. I have a feeling, Vince, this probably is not the last time we're going to see Ja enter the upper room. I mean, by the end of the season, it might be named after him.
Maybe so.
All right. Vince, thank you so much. All right, still to come on